Hi everyone, today we're going to continue with your paper writing by looking at the parts of a literary analysis, focusing on the introduction and thesis. So today we're going to go over the components of an introduction paragraph, the components of a thesis statement. We'll analyze some active verbs that you can use to strengthen your argument. We'll establish a thesis formula that you can use to write a thesis in pretty much all of your papers. We'll put the introduction together and look at a finished example, and then you'll get an opportunity to continue writing your papers by focusing on your intro and thesis. The main point of the introduction is to introduce the text and author, so the text that you've read, build context around what you've read, so to offer a brief summary of what you've read, determine the issue that you found in the text and what you'll be expounding on in your paper, and then argue your point. So within that, with introducing the text, the key is to be specific. So you always want to name the author and you want to name the genre specifically. So if it's a narrative, is it a memoir? Is it fan fiction? Just exactly what it is. Then you'll build some context around that. That's a brief summary. Summaries can be accomplished in one sentence. You don't want that to be the focus of your paper. You want the issue that you've determined and your argument to be the focus of your paper. So with determining an issue, you want to ensure that it's something that you can explain in your paper and something that you can make clear for your reader. And then you do that by arguing your point, and when you present an argument, you want to make sure that you're asserting something specific about the issue you found in your text. In using active verbs, you can really amp up your argument. So it's really just getting through to your reader using emotion, using logic, using pretty much by any means necessary. But in this case, it's through the use of strong words, verbs specifically, that really tell the reader what you're trying to do. So you don't want to illustrate everything. You want to expose, you want to shed light on something, bring something to the forefront that was not initially uncovered. You want to reinforce. So if there's something that has already been happening that you can uphold with your argument, you want to reinforce it. You want to challenge the ideas that are presented within the text. So if there's something that really caught your attention and you just said, "What?" That is the thing that you want to challenge. You want to problematize. So that's if there's something that you see as absurd, again, but something that's been used in society that's just always been the way that we do it, but you see a problem in it, then you can expose that for the reader, and you want to disrupt the narrative. So that's the same thing with problematizing. Something that may seem out of place, call attention to it, bring it to the forefront of your argument, reinforce your argument, challenge any ideas that you think are wrong. And again, the main thing to consider, these are examples, not guidelines. What other words might be synonymous with these, or what other words might help you best explain your argument? In creating a thesis, you want to connect the what with the why, and that's the issue and the impact. The what is what's going on in the text. So that's on the surface, the relationship that you have identified as an issue in the text. Now, you might not have found that issue on the surface. You might have had to read against the grain or really dig to find something that was subverted. But that's what you are going to bring to the surface so that you can expose that to your reader. The why is usually where the argument comes in, and this is the question that I like to answer is, why should your audience care? How are you going to prove your argument in a way that the audience is going to identify with? The issue and the impact, that's how you relate it back to society. So you put it together, you relate it back to society, and that's you telling your audience why it matters and why they should care. So this is how maybe the text commented on the issue that you bring up, and then your response to that. And this is really where you want to use your active verbs. Now you'll notice I didn't include a length here. A lot of people like to say a thesis should be one sentence. I will go ahead and disagree with that. A thesis should be 1 to 3 sentences, and it should really contain everything that you're going to be telling your reader about. You want to set them up really well for the argument to come. So putting that all together, we're gonna use A Soldier's Play by Charles Fuller, something we read earlier this year, as our sample text. So here I would introduce the text. We've got A Soldier's Play by Charles Fuller. We're gonna provide the context. So this is a whodunit. It's a murder mystery set on a segregated army barracks during World War II. And you see that I've summarized that in one line. We're going to determine the issue, and the issue within that play is that Sergeant Waters mistreated his fellow black soldiers and was murdered by Peters because of it. And the point that I'd like to argue is that I argue that a focus on Sergeant Vernon C. Waters in A Soldier's Play exposes race-based oppression and the consequences of racism on both the victim and the perpetrator. That in this case is a typo, sorry about that, y'all. And you will see this one, I was able to do that in one sentence, but I could also include the subpoints that I was going to make and expand it to 2 or 3 sentences. Putting it all together, we've got A Soldier's Play by Charles Fuller is a whodunit that problematizes the racism faced by black soldiers serving in a segregated army during World War II. Reading against the grain with a critical race lens works to expose the issues of segregation and internalized racism for black soldiers serving in the U.S. Army. I argue that a focus on Sergeant Vernon C. Waters in A Soldier's Play exposes race-based oppression and the consequences of racism on both the victim and the perpetrator. And again, that in this case is a typo, sorry about that. So, and you'll see the strong verbs at play here. I'm not illustrating anything. I'm not making things clear. I'm exposing, I'm problematizing. I'm bringing an issue that I found to the forefront and explaining that to the reader. All right, y'all, now that you've seen it, I'd like to see it in action. So go back to your text, summarize in one line, provide the essential context that your reader will need for your argument. Brainstorm active verbs. Don't just rely on the ones that you were giving. What words are synonymous with what you've been giving? What words will best strengthen your argument and make it clear for your reader? Build your thesis statement. And remember, it does not have to be one line. Start out with as many as you need and pare that down. That's a conversation that we can have. Theses are difficult, so consider it a collaborative effort. And then put it all together. So you'll have one more piece of your literary analysis completed, and this will be, you're just going to be putting it together. You won't have to do the entire paper in one go. We're going to keep doing the pieces. So, and as you're completing your first draft of your introduction, please bring them up for feedback. We'll go over what you have and see if there's anything that we can add or anything that can be taken away to make your argument more concise and make it stronger for your reader. All right, thanks y'all, and if you need anything, please raise your hand or come to my desk.